Hello and welcome. My name is Peter Sumpton, marketing consultant and Lego master of marketing, and you're listening to the Marketing Study Lab podcast live. Well, this bit isn't live, but the rest of it is. You'll hear a bit about that later. I mean, now. Well, let's crack on. These episodes are taken from my live show, Marketing And, where we look at the relationship between marketing and a specific topic, subject, or specialism. Sometimes there'll be guests, other times it'll just be me. So let's get cracking. Right, we are back. We're live. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Justin Goldstein, who's from Press Recording Communications, a strategic media relations agency. I didn't want to get that wrong. I was reading it off the screen. I didn't want to get that wrong. Justin, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so today, what I want to cover is marketing and media relations. So before we dive into that topic, can you just give us a bit of a background to who you are and what you currently do for your clients?
Sure. So, well, first, thank you again for having me. So I've been in public relations for close to 10 years now, and I work on a very specific part of public relations called media relations, which essentially means building relationships with the press to get publicity for different types of clients. So I've worked with, clients in travel, real estate, consumer, B2B. It kind of runs the gamut. But the end goal being to get them coverage. And then also working on developing podcasts, much like the one that you have, for different clients, whether it be individuals or organizations.
Okay, that's cool. I think we'll come on to podcasts a little bit later on because it'd be a bit crazy not to.
Sure.
So that's what you do for people. It fascinates me, the whole media relations thing, and it's certainly a topic that I'm not fully immersed in by any way, shape, or form. So looking to glean a lot of insight from this little chat we're going to have here. So first of all, I'd like to start on a big opener. What's the hot topics within media relations? What are you focusing on right now for some of your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on each individual client in terms of hot topics, because there's going to be hot topics for each specific space that they operate in, right? So there's going to be trending stories in retail, real estate, whatever the case may be. It's not generically trends, but I would say that, the rule of thumb right now for anything you're pitching is that most of it should have some kind of tie into coronavirus or the election of some kind. It's not a hard and fast rule, especially if you're dealing with more what are called trade publications or outlets that deal with issues primarily in a specific industry. But if you're looking to pitch, the Today Show or, the New York Times, whatever the case may be, depending on the topic, you usually should have some kind of COVID bent, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all about coronavirus. For example, I recently went out with a pitch and I was saying, COVID is making times crazier. Here's an example of how, and then kind of went on with the pitch past that. So it wasn't just about coronavirus, but it is good to try to have that tie-in.
If you didn't have, say, a tie-in to the election that's going on at the moment, or COVID, is it a case that people wouldn't be necessarily interested in that hook, or would you stand out a little bit more because it's completely different from what everybody else is saying?
Yeah. I don't think it's a requirement. I think that it's something that, reporters, producers prefer, but it's not necessarily required. So I wouldn't let that stop anybody from moving forward with something like that. But it is something that would help.
Okay, that's cool. And just staying on the presidential election, and this is by far getting into politics because that's just a no for me in any way, shape, or form. But in terms of leading with something to do with the election, have you got to be careful when talking to anyone within the media about a political standpoint? I know in this country, particularly the newspapers, they're either one side or the other.
Yeah,
but I can imagine for more private organizations, it's a little bit of a touchy subject which way they go.
Mm-hmm. I think it's more about just first understanding whether you actually want to be involved in that kind of conversation. If you don't really, especially if you work at a bigger company, if you don't want your company being involved in politics to start, which most don't, it's better not to even approach it because it can lead into a conversation that you don't really want to have. If you do, I think it's just being smart about how you have that conversation to make sure that you're providing valuable insight, but that you're also protecting yourself or your organization at the same time, so that they're not saying anything that's going to be too controversial, get them into trouble, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Okay. So I suppose you've got to be picky on who is that spokesperson for particular.
You definitely want to make sure that whoever you're putting in front of a reporter to talk about those kinds of things, they're really equipped to be able to do that.
Okay, that's cool. So I know it might sound like a pretty basic question, but the reason that I like doing these lives, or I intend to do more of them, is to look at marketing holistically, and then look at a specific area or a topic or something within the marketing field, of which media relations is one. So where does it fit in with marketing in its entirety?
I think where its value is and its role is being able to use those pieces of media coverage to meet marketing goals, or to help that process. So, if you're getting media coverage, you can use it as a tool for content development, where you can pull quotes from different pieces of media coverage to do social posts, or create an article, LinkedIn article, for example, or you could even use it for content for your newsletter. There's different ways to weave it into marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You're never ever going to be able to promise that media coverage is going to get you to achieve those goals, but it can certainly help.
Okay, that's cool. So I noticed that one thing that you promote is the print, the online, and the broadcast in terms of media relations, and covering all those areas. Yeah. Is the different strategies or tactics dependent on what area you're looking at?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
okay.
I would say that the basic rule of thumb that should go for any kind of reporter that you're pitching, no matter what medium is, you want to understand what their role is, the kind of stories that they cover, right? But I would say that broadcast works a little bit differently, where reporters can be thrown onto all different types of beats. They could be working in the field, they could be working in the studio. So there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you can pitch them. But really understanding how they work is the difference, because print online, typically they're going to be working on stories that are a bit more longer lead or down the road, where the broadcast often is looking to fill a 24/7 beast every single day.
Okay. So is broadcast more immediate? They want it now. Is somebody available now?
Definitely.
So does it work both ways then, in terms of clients wanting that exposure, obviously, but then obviously the broadcast house and whoever you're talking to coming to you and saying, have you got X that can help us with this?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's been a bunch of times where reporters have come to me and said, "Hey, I remember working with you on this last story with this client. Is there any way you could help me with XYZ?" and try to find a source. That's happened a lot. And that's where the relationship building really is important, because if you're really building solid relationships, reporters are going to come back to you. So, sharing with them information that might be valuable just because, sending them a survey or report that might help to inform their reporting. That's an example of how you build a relationship without asking for anything in return. So it's little things like that help. But yes, it's definitely very possible for reporters to come back to you and ask you for more.
Okay, that's cool. Like it. Okay, so talk us through your process in general for achieving success within media relations. Then, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I think that it goes back to what I was just saying, which is trying to provide value to reporters. And it's not just about saying, "Hey, I have this client that can talk about this." It's more providing them with assets that, again, might help to inform their reporting. Trying to find new trends that they might not be aware of with insight from my clients. Just trying to diversify what I do and try to provide a little bit more of a different approach that's not so standard.
Okay, that's cool. So if you're, say, approaching a client or working with a client, how much information do you need? Because we were talking about immediacy before, but how much information do you need from that client to go to a reporter and say, yeah, this is right for you? Is it a whole bunch? Do you do a full back catalog, or how does that work?
Yeah, it really depends. So for reporters that are talking about a story in real time that's happening, I think you do need comment and more information. But if you're pitching a reporter uncovering a longer lead trend story, then I don't think you do. I think you just need to be able to tell reporters sort of an understanding of what your source or client can comment on, just so they have an overview. And that usually is good enough in that situation.
Okay. So has the industry changed over time then, I mean, you say 20 years ago, it would be hugely different to what it is now. But how are you seeing different trends in perhaps reporting styles or the communication channels that we now use as opposed to, say, 10 years ago?
I think more of what you're doing is going to be the future. I think the
Okay.
definition of media is always changing. I think print, online, radio, TV, it'll never go anywhere. I think as much as people say print is dying, it may be true that yes, people aren't buying newspapers as much, but they morphed and evolved into having more of a digital component. That's where we saw the New York Times digital revenue shoot up tremendously, especially after Trump's election. So I think it's always evolving and always changing. Another good example is radio, where the concept of getting a radio feed has changed, where it's not just on your AM FM dial in your car anymore. Now it's iHeartRadio on your app, for example. So it's always going to be changing, but I think that the fundamental media is going to be there, maybe just look a little bit different, but then also you're going to see new introductions of what media means over the coming years, where LinkedIn live broadcasters like yourself, I think, are going to be considered more members of the media at this point.
Okay, that's interesting. I've worked with numerous clients and within numerous businesses where it's always whatever the hot topic it is, whatever the hot channel is at that time, or wherever our competition might be. We need to be on this channel. We need to get more exposure there. Do you get that at all from any of your clients? They see their competition doing this or that, and they're just like, well, we want to be the same as them.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's more from the perspective of not necessarily wanting to be like, well, I think it depends. If you're a small company and you want to be like a big company, that's very normal. But I think when it comes to the media, it's more so saying, we want to be involved in the kind of stories that they're involved in. Like this reporter just covered a story and included a quote from our competitor, and that's the kind of quote that we want to provide and be featured on. So I think it's more about just tracking where their competition is going, where they're getting coverage, and trying to emulate that.
Okay, that's cool. And obviously, if they go through yourself, it's bound to be bigger and better and far more exposure than their competition.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Absolutely. So although the media landscape has hugely changed, I think a lot more people, like you saying, like myself or anybody, has a lot more exposure or potentially has that exposure, immediacy, and the first thing that springs to my mind is Twitter.
Yeah.
It's where I probably consume most of my news stories or find things out that I wouldn't generally find out. If somebody was looking for or to start a career within media relations, where would you tell them to start? And I suppose the reason that I built that up in that way is, I suppose people are looking at it from the point of view as everybody's a media outlet now. But if they were looking to do what you do, where would you advise them to start, and what would that career path look like?
So I should start by saying that a lot of PR professionals have two choices typically. They can go to an agency or they can go in-house to work for a company, let's say, or nonprofit, whatever the case may be. I always recommend that when you're starting a career in PR, which will inevitably include media relations, that you should start at a PR agency. Okay. Because I think that it really helps to give you a diverse background, not only in the function of media relations, but understanding how to work with clients and explain to them why a piece of media coverage is so valuable. And there's obviously so much more that you can learn just by working across different accounts, working with so many different people. Typically when you're in-house, you're working on maybe one topic with one or two people. You don't have as much interaction with different personalities. You don't learn as much. So that's my view. I mean, everybody has a view, but I think going to an agency, at least at the very beginning for a few years, really gives you some good fundamental expertise that you can bring to an in-house position and really do very well there.
Yeah. So in your background, did you have any educational background in terms of public relations, media relations, or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I went to I went to college for 4 years and got my PR degree at a university here in New York, Hofstra University, and also did my internships leading into my full-time position as well. So definitely had an educational experience, but I don't think there's anything to replace the actual experience you get in a job. So I would say if it were me, I personally wouldn't recommend, unless, you maybe don't have a job and it gives you a leg up to get a job. I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting a grad degree in PR, but I think focusing on it in college is not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah, because I had Dr. I on this live last week, and we were talking about marketing and education. And we were batting around a few ideas and a few topics, and saying that within marketing, that educational piece, for me personally, it's more a foundational block. And I 100% agree with you that there's nothing like that experience, that in the field and everything like that. Do you feel that within media relations or PR, if you like, that education is more of a foundational piece than it is I'm ready for the real world?
Can you kind of reframe that question?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose what I'm getting at is, if you hadn't gone to university, do you feel you'd be as comfortable and as good at what you do now if you say took that those 2 to 3 years at university and replaced them with just on-the-job learning?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, it goes back to what I was saying before, which is that it's all about the real world experience. So I think more than getting taught in a room, it's more about doing the internships and getting that first job. So yeah, I don't think you do, because everybody needs a college degree these days. But I think if, like, let's say, for example, you were a business major or a marketing major and you wanted to learn about PR, you wouldn't necessarily need to be taught in PR classes how to do PR. I think you would learn tremendously more going through the ranks. And so that's really where I learned to do it. It wasn't, I was grateful for my time at Hofstra, and I value the experience that I got. But I don't think that if I hadn't majored in PR, I wouldn't be able to have figured it out going through the jobs themselves.
Yeah, I think there's always that healthy blended mix to be had. You need those foundational skills, and it really, really helps. But there's nothing like learning on the job. So I'm completely with you on that one.
Well, I would also just say that, on the flip side of that, it is good to focus on that in your undergrad degree, in your undergrad experience. Focus on one concentration, this being PR, because then you make those connections. You never know where those relationships are going to go. Somebody might get a job before you and then be able to vet you out with their boss to hire you. So there's always a benefit to doing that. But in terms of actually performing the role, I don't think that you necessarily need the degree.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Perfect sense. So just looking at, from your client's point of view, or from your perspective, when you're looking at clients, if you were to go to a company or an organization, like ideally, what would they be able to provide you straight off the bat? In an ideal world, to make your life much easier, what elements are you looking for so then you can do your job better?
Yeah, I think it's always about what the client can provide you. So always trying to get out of them, commentary for the media that's really going to set them apart. It's something that reporters haven't heard before. That's probably the hardest thing to do. But then after that, really having the fundamentals down of, reporter contact information, understanding what kind of stories they're covering. Those are the fundamentals of, I think, what you need to be successful with that.
Okay, that's cool. Just a couple of comments going back to what we were saying before about marketing qualifications. And somebody, unfortunately, the name's come up. The name hasn't come up. I don't know why, but they're saying that they're a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing without a single marketing degree, and award winning as well. So bravo on that one. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's not one single path to life, really, is there?
Right.
Which that kind of highlights. So if anyone else has got any questions or comments, please dive in and let us know. I just want to change tact a little bit. And what are the limiting beliefs that people have around media relations? What are the maybe not negativity, but the blockers that you always come up against?
In terms of the PR field in general?
Yeah.
I would say a lot of people don't understand what it really means. So they think it's all about spin still, which is not the case at all. There are instances where obviously you have to massage messaging to make your client look good or make yourself look good, but that's not what public relations is. There's a lot more complexity to it. So I would say that's the biggest misconception, is that basically PR professionals are there to bat away the negative comments about whoever they're representing and make them look good.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's all it is.
And in terms of, let's say, spokespeople, I know it depends on the size of the organization, but is there, are you looking for experts in a particular field, one spokesperson for a company, or does it really depend on the topic you're talking about?
It really depends on the topic. I think having multiple spokespeople is a good and bad thing. It's a good thing because, it helps to provide depth in terms of the kinds of sources that you can use. But it can be a downside because then, the client starts to feel the pressure of having to use all those spokespeople, and you don't want to get into a situation where you're using them just to use them. So I would say that's the negative, but I do think the pros outweigh the cons there.
Okay, that's cool. And then taking it that step forward, looking at it from the media outlets, are you being more targeted for your clients in who you go to and say, this is the exposure we want, or is it a broader picture nowadays?
I think it's good to get an understanding from your clients of the kind of coverage that they want, because you may not be able to get the exact media publication that they want, but as long as the messaging is on point, you can make a case for why a certain outlet would be a good fit.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So what I'd like to do is wrap this up with one of my favorite topics, and this goes back to kind of new media and things like that, and that's podcasting.
Yeah.
So I love that genre. I think there's so much white space in so many industries that people should take advantage of that, particularly within the marketing field. Not marketing as a topic, I just mean as a strategy in marketing. So what's your take on podcasting first and foremost?
I mean, it's the future. I was reading a stat the other day that said that more people were listening to podcasts monthly than going on social media. So I think it's a pretty telling statistic. I see it being the future. I see it integrating with social as well, where I see more and more Instagram lives of people sort of including in their stories different snippets of their podcast recordings and being able to promote it there. So I think it's going to just continue to grow. I mean, it's already gone to a point where it's making even more of an impact than it was 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and it's going to continue to grow. But I do think what's going to happen is that it is going to start to become a bit flooded with content to the point that it's going to be really hard to find quality versus quantity. And I think a lot of voices will get drowned out if they're really not doing it the right way.
And I suppose it's like any form of comms. When big players start to come into it, they get a lot more exposure, and then the smaller podcasts might, like you say, die away. But it's some kind of stat that most podcasts don't get after 7 episodes. That's when people stop, which is a bit crazy. You do something 7 times, you're not an expert at it in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I think also the problem with that is, a lot of people don't really understand the value of podcasts, I think, beyond just downloads, right? So, and this kind of goes to my point, which is that it's going to be very hard moving forward to be able to be the next Joe Rogan, right? To have millions of, get half a million, whatever his contract was, $500 million, whatever it is, from Spotify, become the number one. It's just hard. And so you have to understand the other elements of value that it brings, which, for example, would be, being able to use the podcast, like we were talking about before, as a content marketing tool, being able to use it as a guest booking tool to bring on new business prospects. So there's other ways to showcase the value. It's not just downloads. And I think if people understand that, they'll probably invest more time into it, because like you said, if after 7 episodes, they're not seeing 1 million downloads, they might be like, why am I wasting my time? But it really takes time to grow the value out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that point, again, I don't know this person's name, so frustrating, but they've run their own agency for 10 years, and they say the biggest frustration with potential clients is that they don't understand marketing in the slightest.
Yeah.
I can kind of preach for that coming from a building and construction background. Do you find that when you're talking to people, you have people on your side and then other people in the company that take a little bit more of a sell?
Yeah, definitely. I think it depends on the client, because I think there's two types of contacts you could have. One that really wants to have a partner, and the other one that's just doing it because they have to. And typically the ones that are doing it because they have to don't want you there. So they're not going to necessarily fight for you. But I've definitely worked with client contacts that have been on our side, understood our frustrations, really tried to help. So I think it just depends, but there's definitely a mix.
Okay, well, I can say for sure, hands down, that if I was in an organization, you came in, you convinced me, to be fair. The conversations we've had, you could absolutely 100% convince me. So on that, just to wrap things up, first thing, we've got the mystery man, Tony Crutcher. Thank you very much for joining us. And he says, good discussion, guys, which is always nice to get. More discussion from Justin's point of view than me, who's just a rambling mess most of the time. So to just wrap up, Justin, if people want to find out what you do in a little bit more detail, find out more about yourself or your company, where are you pointing them? Where should they go?
Yeah, so you can visit my website at www.pressrecord.co. Thank you for flashing it. So that's where. And also you can find me on LinkedIn. I believe the hyperlink is linkedin.com/Goldstein Justin, EIN and Goldstein. So you can find me there. And yeah, if anyone's interested in, starting a media relations program and wants to learn more, I'd love to be able to chat with you.
Yeah, fantastic. And Justin's LinkedIn profile should be linked in the post that attributes to this live. So if you want to contact Justin, do that, or go to the website that's on the screen. Please do, because he's a top bloke. He knows everything about media relations, and he should be everyone's go-to guy. So, Justin, final thing from me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening and staying with me till the end. Not many people do on podcasts. If you want to chat a bit more marketing, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Email me at petersumpton@marketingstudylab.co.uk. or join our Facebook group, Growing and Thriving. Just search for Marketing Study Lab on Facebook. Happy marketing.